A lot of you disagreed with the wide receiver rankings, but today it's a new day, and we have a top 40 running back rankings, including the rookie class. So hopefully we can
Yeah.
agree a little bit more in this video. If not,
Oh, I'm confident, dude. I know we're all gonna have the same opinion, and no one's
I,
gonna be unreasonably angry in the
I
comments. I
100%.
just know it. I know our community.
Be nice. Be nice, okay? Take us to your first tier.
All right. Well, we don't really need to spend much time on this. Bijan, Gibbs, Brees Hall. They are in that RB1
No
battle.
question.
I don't really care who you have as the RB1, but I think these guys should be valued the exact same. Brees Hall has had, the top two finish, whereas Bijan was widely misused,
Sure.
and Jameer Gibbs is probably going to be getting more and more volume here in his second year. Let's move on to the top five battle. These are the running backs that I think are battling for that top five spot. Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, and Saquon Barkley.
Okay.
I think all these guys, you could make a case for being inside the top five. Certainly CMC is, but when you think about Taylor, Etienne, and Barkley, I think they all can make a good case to be your RB5, depending on how you feel about them. It feels like Travis Etienne, it's another offseason of disrespect. I mean, people were concerned about Tank Bigsby last year. You and I didn't understand it. He goes out and finishes as the running back three,
Yep.
averaging almost 17 points per game, behind the league's worst offensive line as far as the run game goes, or bottom three for sure. And they didn't add a single running back that should worry you. And they only improved their offensive line. So I think he's being disrespected. And Saquon obviously joins the Eagles behind that offensive line.
Exactly.
I mean, could he be the RB1 in regular redraft leagues? Like, I don't think it's crazy to say he has that upside. And then Jonathan Taylor is probably another name that's being disrespected. It's just, what have you done for me lately? You know, he hasn't been healthy, and that's probably the reason why we can't put him in that RB1 battle. But if he and Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, what could they do on the ground? What could that force look like over there in Indianapolis?
Yeah, and I think that's what's exciting about Jonathan Taylor specifically, right? I mean, what has he done for us lately? Has that one RB1 finish just a couple years ago and has been struggling with injuries these past two seasons. Even when he was on the fields for that stretch, weeks 5 to 10, I won't include the bye week. Weeks 5 to 10, he was only RB13, so he still wasn't living up to that expectation that we were hoping for. And that if he were to add that, that's actually including bye week. So weeks 5 to 12 this past season, he was the RB12 and probably on pace and maybe hopefully finishing within the top 10, but not top five. I would say this: the person that scares me the most in this top five tier is Jonathan Taylor, and that's because
Really? Okay.
and
I thought you were going to say Travis.
no, no, no. And I think that's because of the pass catching ability and the
Sure.
fact that, he is a true part of this offense on the ground and in the air. And Jonathan Taylor, which we haven't seen the way this offense is going to look with Anthony Richardson. And I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's
fair.
what's scary because what was happening this past year, or what was the concern coming into this past year, was how many goal line opportunities was Anthony Richardson going to be taking away from Jonathan
Yeah.
Taylor? I mean, in limited amount of times that Anthony Richardson played, he had 4 rushing touchdowns already. In the
Yeah,
what?
and he was only healthy 2 full games.
Exactly. So the more that you're in that red zone area, right? The higher chances those opportunities are going to be taken away from Jonathan Taylor, and it's just deflating. And I think what's going to be happening going into 2024, if Jonathan Taylor doesn't finish I would say if Jonathan Taylor does not finish within top 7, he is no longer in the top 5 conversation. Depending on how everyone
Okay.
else performs, which we'll talk about Devon, we'll talk about Jacobs,
Sure.
even the incoming class of 2025, there's going to be more
Sure.
conversation with Jonathan Taylor. That's my only concern in my top 5 tier, or in your top 5 tier, in the top, 6 players or 7 players that
Okay.
you have currently right now. Everyone else, I completely agree with. Jonathan Taylor is my only concern in the top tier.
So I don't want to overlook that he was dealing with an injury
Yes.
pretty much the entire
Mhm.
year. So that is something that we definitely should consider. I mean, it was his most inefficient year, but he's not an older back. It's not like Dalvin, oh, here comes a tank. It's not like Alvin Kamara is on the ground,
Yeah.
not through the air. So I do want to recognize that he was injured. I still think he is a top level talent in the league. I just want him to put it all together. And last year was a weird combination of like him having this disagreement with the franchise, the standoff, not being healthy. But one thing that you mentioned, which is a good point, is this going to be one of those teams like we saw in Philly that is bottom 5 in targets to the running back position? Because if you play in a PPR, half PPR format, that is something that we should at least monitor moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Zach Moss this past year, caught 27 out of 37 targets, just looking at Zach Moss alone, not the whole team.
Yeah.
And, we saw him take a good snippet of that opportunity. So he still wasn't getting tremendous amount of work. But at the same time, he scored 5 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns, averaging 12.1 fantasy points per game. Once again, this is somebody who at one point in time in the season was a wasn't he like top 5 or top 10 in the first couple weeks when Jonathan Taylor was gone? And it was like, Zach Moss is a perfect waiver wire pickup right now. Go get him, right? Or he wasn't a waiver wire pickup.
It turned into a meme, and then it turned into a meme, and then we were all like, "Oh wait, this guy's actually playing really
it's
well."
Like, is he still gonna have a role when Jonathan Taylor comes back? And we kind of, So interesting to see how that kind of pans out here. But take us to your next tier.
I agree. So this is the battle for the top 10. All these guys are battling to get inside that top 10. Devon Achane, which I have to get something off my chest because it's frustrating me.
Okay.
Ken Walker, Kyron Williams, and Josh Jacobs. This is not a shot at anyone in particular at all. This is what I've seen from almost every Dynasty content creator in the industry, point blank period, on any platform anywhere.
Sure.
I can't remember a time people have used efficiency and explosiveness and said, this guy was so good, so you should sell him. I can't remember the last time that we have done that in the Dynasty community where people are like, look at how efficient he was. Look at what he did on a per touch basis. Look at the yards per attempt. Look at the breakaway percentage. Look at what he did with the small amount of touches. You should sell him. Because it's not repeatable. And I get it. Like, it's not repeatable. But it's just, like... do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I get it.
We always use these analytics to try and find the needles in the haystack, the guys who are really doing the most per touch, the guys who could earn a larger role. And Devon Achane, like, blows it out of the park. Like, one of the most impressive rookie seasons on an efficiency basis that we've ever seen. And the community's like, yeah, definitely time to sell. It is time to get out of this guy ASAP. And I get it because of the price. But if you're talking on a per game basis last year, I mean, he averaged almost over 17 points per game. He averaged more points per game than Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs. And I get it. Like, on a per touch basis, it's going to be tough to repeat that. But are we assuming his role doesn't grow at all? Like, I don't know. Like, how do you be one of the most efficient players we've ever seen as a rookie at your position and just your role doesn't grow whatsoever? And I know that they just drafted Jalen Wright. In my opinion, Jalen Wright is the Raheem Mostert replacement. But I don't know, man. I just think there's too much hate on Devon Achane lately. It's funny. Every analytic that someone in Dynasty would use to point you towards buying a player is now what they're using to tell you to sell this player. It's just confusing to me. I don't like it.
I think a lot of people in the community are maybe valuing Jalen Wright's incoming production when it comes down to Devon and what that's potentially going to look like. Because let's be honest, Raheem Mostert, I'm pretty sure was the first time he played a full game in his career, maybe outside of his rookie.
Full season?
Yeah, full season in his career, maybe outside of his rookie or his sophomore year.
Well, they were even talking about that in interviews. He was like, I'm nervous. Like, every week I think something's going to happen. This has never been this good for me.
And it's kind of the same thing with Devon, though. Like, Devon struggled coming in preseason because he was dealing with injuries. He missed week 1. He comes out, breaks out. And then he breaks out. He has an incredible 3 games, misses the next 6 or 5 games or 4 games, sorry. 4 games. I guess it was 5 games because of the bye week, I guess you can say, right? Comes back. Sure. Gets injured again, misses another game. So like now there's question marks on Devon. There's a little asterisk next to Devon. Is like, can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy, that's phenomenal. But is this a type of player that's running himself into injuries? Like I think what's so great about Raheem Mostert and how crazy that he was how fast he was. And I'm not saying it happens with all fast players, right? Because you can different positions, but like Tyreek Hill's fast. He's very limited injuries. But can Devon stay healthy on the field? And if he can't stay healthy, once again, Jalen Wright coming
So,
into this offseason could take that opportunity away from him because he
oh,
has the
well,
speed. Not Devon A-Chain speed, but he has the speed.
here's the deal. Jalen Wright is going to have a role in this offense, and it will complement Devon Achane. So they're both going to be important players long term. But you look at Devon Achane, I get the injury narrative, but
So
this is the first year he's really dealt with that.
Sure.
I mean, if you go back to his college days, the last year in college, he was the workhorse. He didn't get injured at all playing in the SEC at Texas A&M. He had more attempts in his final year than Zach Charbonnet did, than Tank Bigsby did out of Auburn. So it's not like he's never been able to do it. He's been able to do it. He's just been a little bit unlucky, more than Audric Estime the year that he came out. So I definitely get it.
Let me ask you this then. I'll ask you one more question, then we can move on here. What is your projected role for Devon? Is it, since you're saying you do agree that he's not going to be as efficient as this year? It's really hard to repeat that. That's great. So what is, clearly he's a top 10 guy for you. So you do believe he can finish in the top 10, even with that limited, if he just stays healthy in that limited role. So, okay, I guess I answered my own question. Just really wanted to understand.
I want to talk about Kyren for a second. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are angry. By the way, I'm noticing a lot of people are commenting on our ranking videos, and it feels like they want redraft rankings, and they don't realize this is Dynasty. I mean, the last video we recorded was the Dynasty wide receiver. We literally said Dynasty.
Video. I was like, this is Dynasty.
Someone said, why is Tyreek Hill not number one? And I was just like, do you know what's happening here? So if anyone this is Dynasty, in case we have to clarify. But as far as Kyren Williams goes, I'm a little bit more concerned about Blake Corum than the average person. I do think he's going to play a role in this offense. I've said this many times, but Sean McVay is the king of finding the late round gems. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp was one of those. Kyren Williams was one of those. And for him to say in a weaker running back class, we need to spend a day 2 pick on Blake Corum, that indicates to me that Blake Corum is a part of his plans at some point. Sure. Doesn't mean that Kyren's going to lose his job, but even if Kyren loses, 30% of what he had last year, because there was no one. It was Ronnie Rivers, guys. There was no one last year.
Henderson came up as well.
So I'm a little bit concerned. I'm not saying he won't be the RB1 there. I'm not saying he will be superseded, but is it crazy to suggest that Blake Corum might be a good running back in that system, just like Kyren was? I mean, we're only a year removed from Kyren being a 5th round pick that no one was talking about. Now he went out on the field and he balled out and he proved how good he is. But why can't Corum do the same in that offense? I don't want to start any arguments or like people hating me, but so I definitely still like him, but I have some concerns for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we bought him all off season as a sell. At some point in time, you could have gotten the 107, 106 for Kyren Williams in your rookie drafts. And if you have Kyren Williams, you probably wish you gotten that. That could have been a Roma Dunze. That could have been a quarterback. That could have been a Brock Bowers in your league. So I completely agree there with Kyren Williams. One more guy I want to talk about really quick, briefly, and then we can move on. Kenneth Walker. I just sold him for the 112 in our rookie drafts. Obviously, I'm in a rebuild. I was in a rebuild mode. I needed to get off him. I wanted to get off him because I am concerned. I do believe Zach Charbonnet is going to have a bigger role. I do believe this is going to be more of a pass-heavy offense now with Ryan Grubb coming from Washington. And we've seen, how he opened up the passing offense there with in Washington, and is that going to translate to the running back game? Not saying Kenneth Walker can't, because he got 37 targets this past year and he's an underrated pass catcher, but finishes RB19, struggle with injuries. I'm a little bit concerned. Like I don't see him finishing in the top 10. To be honest, I see him more in the 12 to 17 range, which I'm okay with. But I think with the price that he's at right now, I'm willing to get one of these top tier talent in this draft class specifically, or maybe even flip him for a 25 first, for a better draft class at the running back position.
I think you'd be flipping him for what you are hopefully getting with him. You know, a guy who
Sure.
was round 2 capital and the RB1 on his team. You know, I was very heavy on like last year in the sense of Charbonnet is going to be a problem for Kenneth Walker. And I think he was, but now I'm at the point where like, I'm sorry, my eyes tell me Kenneth Walker is a better player. Like I just think he is a better player at this point in both of their careers. And he's only 23 years old. So I definitely get where you're coming from, but he's got the capital. He's got day 2. The hit rate on that is great. He's already hit. You know, if you look at round 2 running backs and them re-signing contracts with teams, it's a very good indication. And he's played really, really well. 13.3 points per game this year, 13.5 last year. So I definitely get where you're coming from, but I just still feel like he's so safe.
Okay.
He feels so safe.
His floor is safe. That's what you're feeling.
In fact, he feels safer than anyone else in that tier for me.
So his floor is safe. That's what you're saying. Like you're okay with the production that he's going to be bringing out for you week to week. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's okay. I completely understand that. But take us to the next tier.
Yeah, I called this one Young Stars.
Young Stars.
I think these are the young guys in the league who aren't right in the top 10 yet, but certain things could happen this year where I could see them be in there. James Cook,
Come on.
Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Rashad White, and Isaiah Pacheco. And I am wholeheartedly willing to admit right here on this video that I'm probably undervaluing Rashad White. I probably am, okay? I can already feel the comments coming in. What the hell is Rashad White's tier 1, right? You know, like there'll be those comments everywhere, or, you know, I'm keeping the receipts. I'm coming back. Okay, fair enough. All right, fair enough. But at the end of the day, Rashad White was a 4th round pick. And I don't think he's a better prospect than Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks. At the end of the day, if you're telling me in 2025 I can choose one of these 3 names, at this moment, I'm going to call my shot and I'm going to take a Trey Benson. I'm going to say he's the starting running back for the Cardinals in 2025. I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks. I know he'll be the starting running back for the Panthers in 2025. I know James Cook and Rashad White are already starters, but I would actually argue that Brooks and Benson have a higher ceiling than all the other running backs in this category. And with Isaiah Pacheco, I'm just a little bit concerned about what the Chiefs will do long term. I'll be honest with you guys. He's a fine starter. He's a great win now asset. He's not old or anything, but the Chiefs are kind of in this.
You just never know what they're going to do every year.
Well, they're in this era where it's all about bargain hunting, right? Hollywood Brown 1-year deal, $5 million, was it $8 million, something like that. What are they going to do when it comes to Pacheco's contract? Are they really going to pay him market value? This team? I don't know. I think they're just going to go bargain hunting again. I could be wrong. So
is Pacheco free agent in 2025?
No, I don't think so. I think he has one more year. I'll double check.
I was about to say Isaiah Pacheco, if he was a free agent in 2025, GG's, brother. Because
he's so cheap right now. He's costing them
nothing.
Nothing.
I was going to say, surely Andy Reid goes out and pivots to a 25 back.
No, so he's a free agent in 26.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Look, this tier, I don't think there's anything I want to touch on in this tier. I would say that you don't have a big difference with the Rashad White in the community. He's currently RB.
Oh, I don't.
He's currently RB 13 according to Keep Trade Cut. I think he's RB 15 on your rankings.
Okay.
So
that makes you feel better.
It's not too big of a difference here. So it's okay.
I just think he was so inefficient, and it's funny because Bucky Irving, I don't feel like he compliments him at all. But
yeah,
you know,
I
don't know. I don't have much concerns around Bucky. I know a lot of people do.
Yeah,
so.
Same. I don't have much concerns about him either. So
he's a really safe buy. Rashad is if you're competing right now.
Exactly. Okay. Next tier.
Well, before we get into the next tier, we want to let you guys know that if you want your Dynasty team reviewed by Badaki and myself, then it's quite simple. All you got to do is become a Motherflocker member with the promo code LAND. There will be a pinned comment down below for you to check out, a direct link. But maybe you don't know what to do with your picks. Maybe you don't know what running backs suit your team or who you should trade for. We can help you with all that and more with a Dynasty team review. You also get our rankings. Redraft season is approaching. We got best ball rankings coming up. So consider supporting the show, becoming a Motherflocker member. But I named this Reliable Vets because that's what it is. It's just
reliable.
Vets that I think are reliable, except for maybe one of them, but that's a different story. Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, and Alvin Kamara. Can you guess who I was talking about when I said, maybe one of them not so reliable?
DeAndre Swift? Yeah.
Yes, DeAndre Swift was who stood out to me big time there. But he got a pretty decent contract, and I'm really curious to see what that offense is going to look like. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
will this be like what Devin Singletary did last year in Houston? And that might not sound like exciting, but when he became the starter, Devin Singletary was a must start every week, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm super curious to see how they use him, but I also don't feel that secure. If I was like competing right now, I think he's the last of these names I'd want.
Yeah, I think DeAndre Swift is very underrated. I see more explosive plays coming out of him with this offense. I think this offense is going to be very explosive. You know, Caleb Williams
Sure.
is going to be a threat on with his legs. DeAndre Swift is also a pass catching threat. So he has everyone around him that can catch the ball, which is exciting here. So I do believe he's underrated. I think this is where he belongs though, because of his age, because of his situation, because of that contract as well. So I completely agree with DeAndre Swift's location.
Here's a tough thing on him, by the way, is last year you couldn't have really dreamt up a better offense for him to be a part of, right? Behind that Eagles offensive line. Of course, it wasn't the same through the year, but he was still only RB 24 on a per game basis. So
Yeah. I mean, 12.5.
maybe he's the dude, though. Maybe he's the dude here, and Rashawn has no role. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I agree. A guy that I did want to talk about here is David Montgomery. This is a guy that I keep bringing up. I've been trying to trade for all over. This is a guy that finished RB 17 this past year, and he had a similar output to the Rashad Whites, who in a per game basis for David Montgomery, 14.8 compared to Rashad White, 15.8. So one point difference, right? Isaiah Pacheco this past year, 15.3. So just zero point 0.3 of a difference there. Even the same with James Cook, outscoring James Cook on a per game basis, 13.7. So I do believe David Montgomery is worth being in, I guess, this quote unquote young star room, even though he's about to be 27. But this is a 1-2 punch. I get it.
It's almost like an offseason too late. I don't know if you remember last year, that was my favorite buy in Dynasty was David Montgomery. It feels like an offseason too late though, because people already feel so safe with him.
Sure, but people are still.
What are the prices?
People aren't valuing him the same way. He's RB9.
So what is he going for right now?
RB19 right now. He's going for like I would say early to mid second currently. But yeah, I mean, if we look at last season and what that was looking like during the NFL draft, I don't necessarily think that's a big difference. Let me just stop right there before I put my foot in my mouth.
Big time. Last year he was the easiest buy. I mean, I was getting him 212 in last year's class. That's nowhere near what it's worth this year.
Yeah, so last year
208, early third sometimes.
Yeah, so last year he
was way cheaper.
The NFL draft in April type area. After the NFL draft, let's say May 2nd, he was RB 31. So I guess that makes sense. RB 31. Okay.
So it's almost like an offseason too late.
Yeah.
But people's argument was he sucks, he's inefficient, and I was like, wait till what he does behind this offensive line. You'll be surprised. He puts up 4.6 yards per attempt, his career high. And you know, I wanted to quickly highlight Derrick Henry because I honestly think he is my favorite buy in a win now window. If you are a team that you want to compete for the next 2 years, I genuinely don't think there's a better buy in Dynasty right now than a Derrick Henry. I mean, is it crazy to say that he could be a top 6-7 finisher this year in the Baltimore Ravens offense? With the amount of times they get into the red zone on the goal line, this dude's going to thrive. It feels like the perfect situation for his skill set. And it's a 2-year contract.
I'll be honest with you.
At this point, Derrick Henry's got to be treated like Travis Kelce. Until the age shows, you just keep.
That's what I was saying. Like I was saying it last year, and I think this is where we disagree with Derrick Henry. I was like, I think the efficiency is still there. He just wasn't given the 35 plus touches he was getting, I guess, to get that efficiency. And you were right on that. This offense was going to change and be more pass heavy. But it's not Derrick Henry's fault that he was inefficient this year and wasn't the same. He still finished the top 10 running back in 2023. 14.5 fantasy points
RB 16 on a per game basis, but he certainly took a back seat compared to people's expectations of him before the 100%. Year. And that the offense just changed slightly, but still a great player to buy. Mixon, I think, is really exciting to think about in that Singletary role. Kamara, I think is the one that scares me the most of all these names, but
makes sense.
Still a fine bet.
Yeah. Take us to the next tier.
serious upside. Players that have huge question marks, but are really talented at the end of the day. Javonte Williams,
Okay.
Kendre Miller, Tajay Spears, and then Tony Pollard. I mean, all very talented players. And I know people are going to laugh at Tony Pollard, but if you look at Tony Pollard, you kind of track his status last year as he was recovering from that injury. He himself said he didn't feel like he was himself until about week 10 versus Carolina, whatever the game was versus Carolina. From that moment onward, he was PFF's highest graded rusher. We don't know what he's going to be like now that he's fully recovered and has an entire offseason. Tajay, I think Tajay's more talented. I think he's got more burst. He's got more explosiveness, but Tony's the cock block on the team. Kendre Miller, I think Kendre Miller is an extremely talented player as well, but another cock block in Alvin Kamara, who is extremely inefficient on the ground, but the last offensive coordinator decided that he was their wide receiver one. Javonte Williams, really, really bad year off the ACL, but that's what typically happens off an ACL. However, Sean Payton didn't draft him. Sean Payton just drafted Audric Estime.
Yeah.
He brought in Blake Watson.
Yeah.
He's talking up these other names. I think Javonte, if actually healthy, no one in that backfield can hold a candle to him. But I don't know if he's actually going to be the same player past that injury.
Yeah.
So serious upside, but serious question marks here across the board.
I completely agree here. And I think a lot of people, with Javonte Williams specifically, a lot of people are saying, well, Javonte Williams is gonna be this guy, or Javonte Williams is going to be taking the next step. He's RB20 in the community right now. I think that's too high.
Right.
And I think what I would rather be doing is getting, which sounds crazy, is getting a Derrick Henry, a David Montgomery, a DeAndre Swift, and seeing what I can be flipping them for rather than having a Javonte Williams on my team. If I did have a Javonte Williams, right? I mean, look, we have to remember in his rookie year, not a bad season, right? Yeah. Finished top 20 running back on a points per game basis. It wasn't phenomenal. It was only 9.5 on a points per game basis, but Melvin was there. Exactly. Melvin was there, and then he comes out, should have a big 2022 season, tears his ACL. So it's there. It's just what concerns me is that Sean Payton is talking up everybody, even the undrafted guy. He hasn't said nothing about Javonte.
He has no allegiance to anyone.
I don't know, man. I'm scared. I'm scared for Javonte.
After I just checked his price over on Keep Trade Cut, which we always talk about how we want to take advantage of that website, 204, 205 in a Superflex 12-man league. Get the 204, the 205 if you can actually do that. There's no way Javonte should be worth that, respectfully, with all the concerns. Like, maybe he outperforms it, but there are too many question marks to say that's what
I will say this in this running back class, from the reliable vets and then downwards to serious upside type players, I am concerned that all these guys are easily going to be replaced going into next year. Because of how great this 25 class is being projected. Javonte Williams could have a top 20 finish in fantasy, and if he is trending that way, sell him. Same thing with Kamara, with Joe Mixon, with DeAndre Swift. Even with David Montgomery and Derrick Henry, even if they have these long-term contracts, because of how great the 25 class is, I would even throw some of those young players out there as a Pacheco and a Rashad White. I know we talked about Pacheco's contract, even Rashad White, them saying, well, they want to draft another running back. I won't be surprised they draft another running back next year. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about these guys and seeing where you could be flipping them at the right time, which we always say.
It's so circumstantial, though. I can't put a blanket over that. I think some of them could be in danger, but it's every offseason we do a terrible job of actually predicting who's in danger.
Remember last year we was like, this is a deep running back class. People are going to lose their jobs. No one lost their jobs.
Nope. Tier 7. I called it Tier 7. My creativity only knows so many bounds. All right, Tier 7. That's just Tier 7. All right. Yeah. Brian Robinson, Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, Ramondre Stevenson, Zamir White, Jalen Wright, and Aaron Jones. Just a group of kind of different players from different points of their career. I do think B-Rob is probably undervalued. I think you could probably put him in the serious upside. I just don't know exactly what role Austin Eckler is going to play. But Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, some of my favorite late second, early third picks, depending on what your league values them as. Zamir White's going to step into a nice role, and Aaron Jones is going to be the guy. So I mean, if you can't buy Derrick Henry, go buy Aaron Jones if you're a competing team.
Yeah.
I know he's probably going for early thirds at this point, maybe even cheaper, but just kind of a combination of different names there. And honestly, if I'm not competing, I would happily move Ramondre for Marshawn Lloyd, for Blake Corum, because I'm someone who has believed for the last couple of years. I know that Bill Belichick is gone, but the Patriot way is just not re-signing running backs. And it's actually the NFL way as well, by the way. Like, that's the NFL's way now. I just don't think Ramondre, we had a disagreement on a stream, not you and I, but us in the chat.
Yeah.
I just don't think, I'll say this. I think he's a replaceable level talent. Talented player, but replaceable.
Agreed.
And ultimately, I don't think those guys get big long-term contracts.
No, not at all. I would say this. I'm excited for all these guys' opportunity coming into this year. I like what Brian Robinson's going to do, maybe with a new quarterback. Same thing with Marshawn Lloyd. I think Josh Jacobs' contract is a little bit overlooked. I think Marshawn Lloyd could have a role. He steps over A.J. Dillon. Ramondre Stevenson is still the RB1 in that backfield. I'm not scared of Antonio Gibson personally. So keep that in mind. So all these guys do have phenomenal upside here, especially with Blake Corum, which we kind of mentioned earlier with Kyron Williams. But yes, go through your last tier here.
Yeah, last tier, I just wanted to put it out there because I know there'd be people like, what about this name? What about that name? What the heck? Where's this guy? So this isn't really like a tier. It's just like the next ranked players at the running back spot. So your Jaylen Warren, your Najee Harris. How do you digest that backfield? I have no idea. Najee, fifth-year option decline, no surprise. Zach Charbonnet. I mean, as much as I love the guy, I just think he will be the backup to Ken Walker, unfortunately. Nick Chubb, fun buy. Let's see if he can stay healthy. Devin Singletary, Austin Eckler, Zach Moss, James Conner. I have James Conner lower than the average person. I'm higher on Trey Benson than the average person. 1 + 1 = 2.
Come on.
Tie my shoes, Dr. Seuss. Chase Brown and then Jerome Ford. I think a lot of people have Chase Brown higher than this. I couldn't tell you who's going to win that role between Brown and Moss, but I think it is Moss. That's why I have him ranked ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think Chase Brown will be the guy in the second half of the season, maybe like, maybe week 6, week 7. But yeah, look, it makes sense when it comes down to Chase.
I guess it depends on what version of Zach Moss we're going to get.
Yeah.
Is it Indianapolis or is it Buffalo? Because Buffalo Zach Moss isn't winning a job, but Indianapolis might be a top 10 back.
Yeah, exactly. So we just have to wait and see what that looks like. But I love all these guys. In your running back, you have a running back. I will say Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren underrated. RB 2 top 24 RB finishes this past year.
But it was so boring.
It was boring, but if you had him, you're like, at least I'm getting a double-digit points. Jaylen Warren, 11.6. Najee Harris, 11.5. You were happy with 11 points, even though the Steelers were absolute dog shit. You got points. So
don't worry. Russell Wilson is there to save the day, though.
Come on, Russ, or Justin Fields.
Yeah. I mean, has a running back been good with Justin Fields? I don't know. What was David Montgomery's doing? I don't remember, but you have a running back. All these guys, you got a running back. You have an RB2. Yeah. You can place them in your lineup and see what happens, but that's it for today, guys. We appreciate you. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you soon. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.